we are going to create a 3D wheel that's possible to 3D print, and these are designed to go on racing rocket cars. So head on over to the website tinkercad.com, choose the sign in option, and you can sign into this website using your Google account if you've got one. Right, let's get going. I'm going to create a new design. Here it goes. Step 1 is the most important one, and the one that lots of people forget, and that is to give it a name. It's called Smooth at the moment. After me, perhaps. I don't know. Let's give it a name. Wheel. There we go. It's a little bit more descriptive. Not great, but a bit more descriptive. Right, now the second job is to edit the grid. I'm going to click on Edit Grid, because the wheel we are making is, do you know how big it is going to be? It's going to be 70 millimeters. That's the smallest possible size that's allowed. Now if you want to experiment and create bigger wheels, then you can. That's up to you. So I'm going to update the grid. There we go. Now using the middle mouse button, or the wheel, you can, on a mouse, you can zoom in. You can also use the right mouse button to rotate, and left mouse button is used for selection options. Probably best if you work that out for yourself. Have a little play. Anyway, you can also use this to rotate around as well, which is pretty cool. Okay, here goes. Let's use a ruler, because this will enable us to be super precise. So I'm going to add a ruler. It's really important that it lines up perfectly in the bottom left of the work plane. There we go. Now I could use a tube, but I want to teach you how to use the cylinder object and how to put a hole in the middle of it, because those skills might help you another day or with another project. So I'm going to click and drag to add our cylinder. Now I can use these numbers here and here to set the size. So I want it 70 by 70. There we go. And I'm going to position it in the bottom left hand corner, so I can change these two numbers to 0. Oh, and this one 0. There we go. Now you've probably noticed that at the moment it's not looking very wheel-like, so I'm going to make it more precise by adding to this number the number of sides to make it super smooth. I'm also going to add it a bevel, so I don't know if you can tell or not, but that means it adds a little bevel, little curve around the outside of the wheel. So the idea being it makes it just that little bit more aerodynamic, and all those little changes can make a big difference to the performance of our rocket car. As for the height, I am going to make this 3 millimeters. Now you want it thick enough to be sturdy enough, but you don't want it too small that it's going to end up being flimsy and break apart. So you might need to experiment with some different heights. Right, so that's the basics of our cylinder. Now at the moment there's a lot of material here, which means it will take forever to print, and all that material is going to add to the weight of our rocket car, which is not good. We want to minimise the amount of weight. So I'm going to click and add one of these cylinders, which acts as a hole. Now I want the wheel itself to be 3 millimeters, so 3 mil here and 3 mil here, which means that this, the size of this, is going to be the width of this minus 6, right? Because I've got 3 this side, 3 that side, 3 plus 3 is 6. 70 minus 6 is 64. Oh, there's some shortcuts here. I pressed them by mistake. 64, 64. And I want this to be super smooth, and I also want it to go in the middle. So I'm going to set this number here to 3. Oh, not 43, 3, and this one here to 3. Use midpoint. Yeah, make sure this is there's different ways of setting this, so make sure this is always on midpoint. Yeah, there's lots of buttons you can press sometimes that can end up confusing you, but yeah, anyway, use midpoint there. Right, as for the height of this, it doesn't matter at the moment. Actually, it doesn't matter at all as long as it's at least equal to the height of the wheel, which is 3 mil. Right, so now to actually cut out the middle. So I click on hole, hold down the shift key on your keyboard, and then click on the outer wheel. And what we can do is group them together. Ka-ching! And then, as if by magic, it has not done what it... Oh, there it is. It's taking its time today. Got me worried. And now we've got our basic loop. Right, now we need somewhere for the axle to go, so we're going to create a little hub in the middle using the same technique. So I'm adding a circle. I'm going to make this 10 mil, and I'm going to make this for the height 5 mil, which is a bit bigger than the wheel itself. But if the wheel, if you imagine that the body of the rocket car is here, if the wheel ends up rubbing against the body of the rocket car, we want to minimise the amount of friction involved. So that's why I've made this slightly bigger. That's why this extrudes slightly further than protrudes, rather. Slightly further up than the wheel itself. So this is 3. Let me definitely set that to 3. And this is 5. I hope that makes sense. Right, so let me rotate this back around. Now I want this right in the middle, so what are these numbers going to be? Hopefully you said 30. So now these two are both 30, this is going to be right in the middle. Let's add a hole for our axle. Now hopefully you know the width of your axle. The axles, I tend to use a 3 mil, but I'm going to make the hole slightly smaller. 2 mil, because I can always drill out the hole to make it bigger, but I can't ever make it any smaller easily. So with this set at 2 mil, I can then change these two figures to put this exactly in the middle. So change it to 34, that to 34. Shift click, select both of these, group them together. There we go. Right, now of course this can't just float in the air, so we need some spokes. I'm going to use this round roof object for our spokes. I'm going to make this 4 mil wide, and I can use this little dot here in the middle to make it a little bit bigger. Now 33 is at the right position. Right, 33 is the right position. I'm just checking this looks about right. Now as for the height, I'm going to set this to 3 mil, and then I'm going to make this bigger. Now I actually want this to be the other way around, so I'm going to move it to one side for a moment, and I'm going to use this rotate option here to rotate it 180 degrees. And then reposition it. There we go. Right. Now we want this wheel to be nice and balanced. So we could create 4 spokes in like a cross formation, or to minimize the amount of mass or the amount of material we use, we can create 3 spokes. So to do that, I'm going to duplicate this, create another one, and then using this rotate option here, I can rotate it around. So because we've got 3 spokes, it's 360 degrees in a circle. 360 divided by 3 is 120. Pardon me, it won't let me rotate it exactly 120 degrees at the moment, which is rather annoying. Let me try that again. That's got it. Oh, sometimes you might just need to rotate the view and zoom in to be able to get to this rotate option. Now of course if you have problems doing this, you can just create 4 spokes. Not 130, I'm not thinking straight. Here we go. Oh. Now, as long as the mouse is right on the outside of this wheel, we can be very precise with the movements. So I need to keep, as you can see, I don't want to move the mouse in the middle like this. I want to have the mouse on the outside of the wheel so then I can be very precise. So 120, there we go. Right, so I'm going to position that one. You can probably work out where it goes, but if you want to work out precisely where it goes, you can do. That's a little puzzle for you to work out, see if you can work out exactly where it's got to go. I'm going to duplicate that once more, and then I want to flip it around the other way. So I'm going to use the flip option, or mirror option, and mirror it around. Look, I get a nice little preview of what it's going to do. That's pretty cool. And then I'll position this one. Right, one final check, make sure make sure these spokes aren't protruding through the middle. And there we have it. That's pretty cool, isn't it? Yeah, so it's a bespoke wheel that's looking really good, hopefully. Now, to 3D print it, you are probably going to need to export it. So click on the export button, and which format you use, as different kinds of file format, will depend on the printer that you're using. Now, for the printer that we use, you're going to need STL. So I can download this as an STL file. Okay, there we have it. Have fun making your wheels. Now remember, if anything does go wrong, you can always use the delete key or undo, but try and make it as precise as possible so it ends up being aerodynamic, that the wheel ends up being nice and balanced, that it's going to minimize any friction, it's going to minimize any material that you use, so this rocket car is as light as possible. That's the challenge. See how you get on with creating your wheel. Good luck, have fun.